Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Daughters of Fly in My Eye, the third in this horror anthology series. What a way to start off. Look at this beautiful John J. Muth cover. This is so nice. I love this cover. Really good stuff. This one, once again, they're getting thinner and thinner every issue. It's the law of diminishing returns, I guess. And I got to be honest, quality-wise, too, this is not a very good issue, I got to say. There's a couple of really good stories in here. Some nice art, not this one. This is Jim Whiting. And but once again, we have just three really creepy, bizarre images from John Bolton, the great English artist. Man. It almost looks like a retouched photo. Pretty damn nice, though. Pretty weird. This one also looks like a photo. Contents page. This came out in 1990, by the way. And for some reason, we have a coming attraction for a story that appears on page 69. I've never seen that in a comic before. Very odd. And we start off with The Cockroach Waltz, written by Steve Niles, art by Carlos Castro. Carlos Castro, he was one of those early 80s, mid to late 80s, one of those painterly artists. And it just seems like all the independent guys were like clamoring for these guys. After seeing like Dave McKeon and, Scott Hampton and George Pratt, those guys were making a name for themselves. And it was kind of in vogue to have like that kind of painterly art. And Carlos Castro was like a lesser one. And I remember he was all over like all these weird little books from like Millennium and Eclipse. Like they couldn't get, Kent Williams, so they get Carlos Castro. This one is terrifying to me, not because it's like a well-crafted horror story, because I fucking hate roaches. I'm terrified of them in a weird way, but I also hate them and have dedicated my life to eradicating all of them. When I lived in Tucson, I even taught myself to just kill them with my hand, because if one escaped me under like the bed or under the sofa, I'd have a hard time going to sleep. So sometimes when you reach for that shoe or something to kill the bug with, it escapes. So I would just kill them with my bare hands, those giant, nasty sewer roaches. And then I'd wash my hands. But even though they repulsed me so much, I did that because for them to escape was worse. And those big sewer roaches, let me tell you, when you kill them, it's so gross. Like this white splooge comes out. Ugh. God, I'm so glad I live in Portland just for that reason, is that we have no roaches here. It's just above a certain parallel line, a certain latitude or longitude. I always mix those up. So here you can see pretty nice art. Pretty, like, a lot of it's photorealistic, but it's also not like boring photorealistic. Like he also exaggerates, like a cartoonist should. And we see this guy's diary, and we pretty early on realize that he's insane. He's a total fucking schizo, this guy. And he's been trapped not trapped. He's afraid to leave his apartment. And basically his whole life is this war against the roaches. He thinks they're conspiring against him. And of course he tries to kill as many as he can. And look, he's doing what I used to do. Just killing them with his bare hands. I wouldn't torture him like that. I'd just splat him on the floor. I wonder if this was originally done in color and they just couldn't afford to print it. Because I'd like to see it in color. So you can definitely see, like, this guy obviously read, like, Dave McKeon stuff and is kind of trying to be like that. So various scenes of him killing cockroaches and hearing his thoughts and just his ranting thoughts. This guy's really over the rainbow. He's fucking cuckoo. Man, just look at this well-drawn bed. That's just really good. It's really nice art. He's not quite there, though. Some of the faces are a little off, you know. That's why he was, you know, the guy to get if you couldn't get the good guys. If you couldn't get the Pratts or the Williams or the McKeons, but you still wanted painted art. This part when he starts full-on hallucinating, this to me is fucking horrifying. These giant roaches sitting at his kitchen table and all various sizes causing havoc. Look at this one coming through the door. God, that's such a repulsive image. It's all in his head, though. They're not that big. So, his neighbors, you know, notice the smell from his place because he's a filthy, crazy guy, and all the noise he makes. So we see the neighbors like yelling up to him from other rooms, and they look like roaches. He sees everyone as a roach, a giant roach. He draws roaches so scary to me, terrifyingly. They just look so disgusting. Yeah, the story really worked for me because it really hit home. This one scene I don't quite get. He pours like honey all over himself, attracting all the roaches. Well, I guess I do get it, but then it's like, then we see him, you know, just without the honey on him. Almost as if these pages were printed out of order. You know what? I'm pretty sure they are. No, the dates match up. Oh, I did want to point that out. I forgot. I do like this, how the roaches are actually creeping off the panels. Almost as if it's you'd think there's little roaches on your book. This kind of nice little panelology. Thinner and thinner panels showing the speed of which he's turning the light on and off. So now we're back to him with the honey, and all the roaches are crawling all over him. And he put the gas on in the oven, and he has a lighter. And it basically blows up the whole building. God, look, that's pretty amazing art. Kind of looks like a photo. And of course, it's got to have a little epilogue. And from the rubble of this building, we see a little roach walk away, and some pedestrian steps on him. That's kind of a neat cinematic approach here. The guy's approaching the roach and Scrunch. Next, we got another Matt Howarth story. This one's really nicely drawn, and this is a very strange story. The Poltergeist Papers, excerpts from Gracie's diary. And it's just this normal teenage girl who's just got her period. She's kind of happy. She's a woman now. And she has some little boyfriend named Danny who she's been making out with, and she's very excited about that. And this is almost like this horror story about getting your period, because it starts affecting her brain. Like her PMS is just like off the hook. It's like it's really like something she dreads, almost like in a horror story, you know, like it becomes this monster to her. She calls her period her ugly friend. She loses her boyfriend Danny, and then she won't even tell her diary what happened. She says, "I've ruined everything. I just know it was something I did. I can't bring myself to tell you, diary." And then I guess she goes off the rails and like beats the crap out of this. Well, actually, it's her friend. I think she is her friend, and the friend just said something she didn't like, and she like sent her to the hospital. because it was right before her period. Very strange story. And then, one day someone comes into her bedroom and tears up all of her stuffed animals, except for Mrs. Gracie. She thinks it's her bratty brother. But that we never find out. It's just very odd. And then we jump ahead, like, I believe 7 years. And she's still writing in her diary. She's a woman now, a grown woman. And she's telling her diary how she's going to be married soon. And her husband, Alan Guilford, she's crazy about him. And she says that she gave Mrs. Gracie, her Mrs. Gracie doll, to a friend's niece, some 11-year-old girl. She doesn't need her doll anymore. She says, at least my period isn't due until after our wedding night. And then it says, concluding notes, Alan Guilford was arrested for the brutal wedding night dismemberment of his wife. The jury paid no attention to his plea of temporary insanity and sent him to the electric chair. It's so sad when someone has premenstrual syndrome and does the wrong thing about it. So I don't even get that note. It's like, what does that have to do with premenstrual syndrome? He killed her. So, yeah, this is a totally puzzle of a story. Though the fact is, it was very interesting. I had no idea where it was going to go. To be honest, it didn't go to a good place. This is a pretty crap ending. Unless I'm missing something. I can't figure this out. It doesn't make any sense. Here we have a portfolio. It's called Out of My Skull Portfolio by Eric Talbot. Eric Talbot worked at Mirage Studios a lot, did a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles work, and other things. Melting Pot. I guess that's kind of Mirage too. And he's pretty good. These are pretty nice. Kind of look like like just a great fanzine artist. This could have been a pinup in some, he would have been an upper echelon fanzine artist. Pretty nice, though. It's got a gravestone here that says Corbin, rest in peace. He predicted the future. Kind of like heavy metal Almart. So popular in the 90s, the killer clown motif. I guess it kind of still is amongst certain people. Here's The Raven, Edgar Allan Poe's famous poem, illustrated by Ferdinand H. Horvath. And this is some striking graphic design, but I gotta say, this is just such a, I don't know, a waste of pages, but man, just by having one little verse, oops, I skipped a page, and then a drawing. This takes up like 30 pages of the issue or more. And it's basically just a nice little portfolio of this art. I never liked The Raven. I don't see what the hubbub is. I think it's just a kind of crap. But some really nice stuff. Really all over the place, this guy's art. I'll just show you the art. Some of these drawings, I don't really even see what's going on, but they're just striking graphic design. I suspect this was like published badly. Like, this looks too dark. I don't think the artist intended that. Maybe he did. But I have a feeling that some of the, they screwed up the register on this black and white art. Never heard of this guy. Never seen him since. I guess he's not a comic guy. That's why he just has illustrations here. I mean, he could be, but I'd imagine he was just some graphic designer and he wanted to dabble in the comics form, or at least sequential narrative. So much reminds me of like 30s book illustration. The sad thing is the whole time I was reading the poem, I couldn't not think of Homer Simpson's voice reading it from that first Treehouse of Horror episode. Homer really made the words come alive for me. Some really interesting art. See, look at this. I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to be that dark. I love this. That's a really nice drawing. Yeah, this is really interesting style here on this one. This one seems different than the rest. Yeah, so I guess it's just a little over 30 pages. So here we have a one-pager, Mike's New Pets. And, I forgot where we drew this. Let's see. Should have been prepared. This is by Kathy Cashel. And this is pretty crude. Not very good. Apparently this woman, she takes in a pregnant cat. It'll only eat living food, live food. And she has kittens who are the same, kind of like the way she draws those creepy kittens. And I guess they run away, and all of a sudden there's these like all these lost dog flyers up, implying that their cats are just running around eating everything. This guy, oh, I'm sorry. This woman is writing this story, but it's her friend Mike who took the cats in. And then Mike says that when he gets the cats back in the house, he decides to keep them inside until they break down and eat regular food. And she begs him not to. And then she doesn't hear from him for weeks, implying that the cats were just like, well, you're the only live thing here to eat. So here we got that Big Head story, written by Steve Niles, drawn by Jim Whiting, the guy who did the inside front cover. It says adapted by Leslie Clegg, so maybe this was a short story or prose story by Steve Niles. This features his character Cal McDonald, who Steve Niles has done many stories about. This Jim Whiting, guys, some of this is pretty awful. It almost looks like he could veer into a better style at some point. But man, there's some really crappy art in this. We just see this guy whose head's getting bigger, and then he realizes that he has the power to just kill people by thinking about them, kind of absorbing their brains. So his head keeps getting bigger and bigger. I guess some of this like cartooniness I kind of like, but then the next panel will be totally different. And so now we meet Cal McDonald. He's a junkie detective, and I think he always gets involved with kind of supernatural cases. We see him shooting up in his office. A detective comes to visit him, and the detective needs his help. He's like, I don't approve of your methods, but you're a damn good detective, and this seems right up your alley. This is some crazy shit just went down. We need your help. Like, look at this. I don't know. It almost could be like Peter Bagg, but Peter Bagg would use it to good effect. This just looks silly in this kind of story. So the detective drives him to that guy's apartment building, the Big Head's apartment building, and there's almost everyone in the apartment's been killed. Their brains have been sucked out. There's some panels in here that are so badly drawn, I can't really, I don't, almost don't even know what's happening. It's like, what is that supposed to be? It's sad because I do see glimmers of his style could totally develop into something kind of cool. Some weird cartoony style. Maybe he did. I don't know. I don't know what happened to Jim Whiting. He seems like the kind of guy who would like work for Fantaco and a bunch of small press publishers. So Cal feels a tugging at his brain. Everyone in the crowd, all the cops, all the onlookers, they all get their brains sucked out. But not Cal. But he keeps feeling this tugging at his brain. So Cal gets a fix. I guess the doctor on the scene, he died too, so leaving his bag, his medicine bag. And basically, Big Head's getting even bigger. And he just sucked the brains out of that whole crowd outside. And we now, I do like how the story splits the narration between Big Head's point of view and Cal McDonald's. So it's almost like you have two protagonists. Well, one's obviously an antagonist, but you get inside his head too, and you know his thoughts. I really like that in the stories where they do that. But Big Head basically, he can't absorb Cal's brain because it's poisoned with heroin, and he knows it'll infect his whole giant head full of brains. He can hurt him though with like psychic blasts. So Cal has a shotgun, breaks into the guy's apartment, and all of a sudden, Big Head starts to fly, like hover over the ground. See, his head's so big here, his body is just this little vestigial, almost just like a wart on this giant head. So Cal's trying to hunt him down with his gun. Big Head keeps attacking him, trying to kill him. And Cal reaches for the hypodermic needle, which I assume has a little more heroin in it. And he plunges it into Big Head. Big Head goes flying off in a frenzy. And Cal keeps stabbing it with the hypodermic. And finally, Big Head gives up the ghost, and they go crashing to the ground, exploding into a mass of disgusting brain ooze. And then Cal claws his way out of this gunk and says, "It's me, Cal McDonald, private detective. There's your man." And then he falls over. nods out. So once again, Steve Niles, even as a young man, he told a good story. But I just wish he picked a different artist for this comic. This one's called Head Problem. Well, Head Problem? Question mark? Shrink It. And this guy's a pretty good artist. And this is literally just directions on how to shrink a head. Almost as if it's a little manual for kids. Some rainy day activity. Did I even say who it was? I don't think I did. P. Hayes. Let's get his first name. He deserves that at least. Peter Hayes. I see a little rights in this guy's art. And then we have, this is one of the main reasons, like, I haven't been that thrilled with this issue, to be honest. But this story is amazing. And, oh, I guess it's the same artist. This is Peter Hayes. Let me double check on that. Yeah, it is. And this is such a weird, surreal story. It almost reminds me of, in a weird way, Paul Kirchner. A totally different writing style and more dialogue and stuff. But there's something just off-kilter about it. We see a guy in his balcony. He's buck naked. He's calling his ex. And, I'm sorry, she calls him. And he tells her, he's like, yeah, I'm on the balcony. I'm thinking about jumping. And she says, she's buck naked. And she says, oh, yeah, I've had my head in the oven with the gas on for 5 minutes. I thought I'd call you one last time just to say I don't hate you. And they start talking about the afterlife as the man climbs up on the ledge. And he jumps off his ledge, holding onto the phone, still talking to his ex. And they're still having this kind of theological discussion. And then, of course, at a certain point, the phone cord breaks. And so she's mad. She's like, oh, son of a bitch hangs up on me. And so she runs out to her balcony. I guess she lives in the same building. She says, go ahead, jump, chump. And she kind of leans back to see if he's, where he's at. And she sees him tumbling down. Just a weird little touch he adds. In this balcony, there's this guy who's been, burnt away to, a half skeleton. And there's a dog there. Maybe the dog ate him after the owner died. But it has nothing to do with the story. Just this amazing little crazy touch. Looking at this again, I really like this. I gotta find more Peter Hayes. I love the art. Everything about this story is just so odd. He's about to get at her, guys. So as the husband's falling, he sees that he's about to fall at his wife. He says, look out, Flossie. That's her name. He hits her, knocks her over the balcony. I like the sound effect here, glonk. And together they both fall to their deaths. And almost like they're embracing one last time. And here's where it gets nutty. The lovers fall through an empty drum and into the netherworld. And they land in this giant, robot hand. And they're in, I guess, some kind of hell. And they see all these people with their heads on fire running to these almost like giant smelting pots, running to their deaths. And Flossie and the dude, they're just kind of not that scared. They're just kind of commenting oh, would you look at that? Huh, this is weird. They don't seem like, oh my God, we're in hell. They see piles of bones. Look at this panel of all these skeletons here. That's some pretty ornate work. So inside this palace, the hand deposits them in this little fountain. This weird guy shows up, and it seems like he's going to be their guide through hell. So they see all these crazy things. First he takes them to this place. He says, we're going to suction off your ill humors, like your yellow and black bile. They put him in these test tube things, and we see them sucking them out. And then they basically fill them full of lye until they're giant and bloated. And then they put them in this burning vat of oil, boiling oil. And pretty soon, Dean and Flossie, that's the ex's name, Dean, they're reduced to fluid. And then the hand takes them. They're just a puddle. And pours it in this ocean. And it says, absolutely clean, 100% pure, the living essence of Dean Flossie. Must be good for something. A whale comes up to eat this. The hand says, dilute, dilute. Magic, healing. God, that's a nice panel right there. And then all of a sudden, the whale explodes into like 100 healthy littler whales. So weird. It's crazy. And now we see that guy, the guide in hell, basically. And he says, grab your lever and jump. While you selfishly cling to your lives, the whales dwindle in number. Man, that's some just bizarro shit. And speaking once again, about the drawing. Look at this. The ripples on the water. This is like a bravura piece of artwork here. This is some nice stuff. This story I like too. This is An Englishman Abroad by Molly Sire. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Eyre, like Jane Eyre. And it's by Disraeli, Demon Draftsman. I always like Disraeli's work. He's definitely has a unique style. Very, very great style. And this is another really strange one. We see this guy who's our narrator. Oh, it's Disraeli, he says. Though I don't think Disraeli has a pentagram on his forehead. And he's in Paris. And he's showing all these interesting sights. And these two kids try to pickpocket him, and he kicks their asses down these steps. And then he gets on the metro, and he talks about all the weird things that happen on the metro. Apparently, there's a certain class of criminal in Paris, the Parisian nipple pinchers, guys who just run up to women in the subway and pinch their nipples. But this woman's not having it, and she fucking kills this guy. Throws his face through the glass window. And then he talks about this weird restaurant where their specialty is escargot. But they make you sign a life insurance policy. Or they at least ask you if you have one. And if they ask if you have a will. Because what they do is they shoot the escargot into your mouth with a crossbow at such high velocity that if you don't catch it with your teeth, it'll blow your brains out. And that's what happens to Disraeli here. And the waiter says, your brains, sir? Would you like me to call a surgeon? And he says, no thanks, just get me a doggy bag. It's got such a great dry wit, this comic. And definitely would like to read more of these city guides by Disraeli. There's the end. We can see the back of his skull is missing. It's a nice page. Here we have a Vincent Locke portfolio called Some Pictures. Vincent Locke, you might know him from, he started in the 80s doing that Dead World zombie comic. And then he went on to do many Vertigo comics and other things. That guy, man, just basically he started drawing when I was a teenager. That's when Dead World was coming out. And just over the years, he was pretty cruddy. Dead World was pretty primitive. You know, it had some good panels here and there. But then over the years, he's just gotten better and better. So my whole life, I've seen Vincent Locke get really good. I mean, you can just look at that well-drawn hand. That's really good with a pen going through it. It's a striking image. Once again, you can't help but see some Wrightson in here, but I think almost all horror cartoonists kind of look to Wrightson. Very horrifying image here. Double page spread. Vincent Locke seems to like to draw guys with multiple limbs. I remember there was a bunch of those in Dead World. And now we have Spring Cleaning by Clay Harris and Paul Hedrick. And kind of interesting art. It's not my favorite kind of art, but definitely the sweat equity is there. But it is kind of interesting, this like all those lines for shading. pretty weird story. It's this woman, she's like, oh, I gotta get home, gotta do spring cleaning. And when she gets home, it looks like this demon has just defiled her home. Blood on the walls, horrible things scrawled. And it is this demon here. And she catches him just as he's leaving. I guess he goes back to hell for an hour every day or something. Or for his bedtime. So she starts cleaning the house, and she's frantically cleaning the house. She's like, oh my God, I only have an hour. I've got to clean this whole house. And, you know, this house is just, it's like something out of a horror movie, about Amityville Horror. And she succeeds in cleaning the whole house, but not Katie's room. It would never let me clean up in there. And we see in Katie's room, I mean, you can't really see her under the covers, but it doesn't look good. And everything's rotten, and obviously something's off here. So she continues to clean the rest of the house, and she's getting more and more worried. So she runs out to her yard to get a gasoline can. She pours the gasoline into this, what do you call those things? The baby's crib. A crib. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. And she lights the crib on fire. Quickly spreads throughout the room. His art kind of suits the story. The story's so just... all of the windows are all cracked, and it looks really great. I love the way he draws this, these cracked windows. Who's the guy who used to draw? Oh, Ron Wilbur. He used to draw like this, with all those lines on everyone's face. All the shadings like lines like that. I knew it reminded me of someone. Okay, so she's sitting there, even though the house is on fire, and her little kid comes out. I assume that's Katie. And Katie says, Mama. And the mother says, my baby. And she grabs her and hugs her. Says, you're back. What the hell just happened? I don't know. I don't really get the story. But I gotta say, it really sets up this scary, creepy mood. It almost seems like what it would be like to be schizophrenic. You know, like this whole obsessive cleaning her house because she thinks a demon is gonna come back and eat her. I don't know, whatever. And then lighting her child on fire, even though I think the child was already dead. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, but man, look at that image. Flaming toddler, that's pretty horrifying. Here's that same Jim Whiting image from the inside front cover, and a beautiful back cover by John Bolton. That is it's gorgeous. Really like that. So there you go, guys. Daughters of Fly in My Eye, the third in the Fly in My Eye collection, series, I should say. And there's one more, which we'll look at in a few days. So there's only 4 of these, and I got them. And that one's even thinner. But hopefully it'll be better. This issue has some great stuff, I gotta say. But it almost seems like the whole first half of this is not so great. Though I do like that Carlos Castro story about the roaches. That was pretty damn scary. So hope you guys enjoyed looking at it, and I hope to see you next time here at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.